Hi, I'm Brendan Ruch, Smallmouth guide from South Central Pennsylvania. And today we're going to be tying something that I kind of came up with to fill a void in the box of something that people can cast a little bit easier than a dense changer or leggy buoy. Something that's still going to get a stall. So it's basically on a Circus Peanut platform, and it has reverse ties, kind of like bulkhead style, like a bad hair day. And then, of course, it has a bunch of rubber legs and some finesse chenille to keep it dense in the body. So you're going to get a good swim out of the big marabou tail on a shank, and then it's going to jackknife in the current with a hard strip, and then giving the rod tip back to the fly. It's going to make that thing jackknife. So put the first shank in the vise. And that is a cut shank, so there's no hump coming off the back. Marabou is going to lay nice and flat. I'm going to cord that thread. Got some MFC barred marabou here. I'm going to throw a little bit of a lighter shade in the middle. Keep those tips lined up. And I've honestly had a lot of success with leggy buoys with tails like this big. So you can make them smaller. Like on this fly here, it's not quite as big of a fan. I'm going to take a little bit off of that chunk, choke up just a little bit. Make sure this is corded up. I'm going to tie all three in right on the top of the shank. I'm stretching that thread just so these don't ever pull out. And make sure that's vertical. A couple more good tight wraps back here. Then I'm going to wrap under each feather individually and then wrap on the shank. Come in and cut these close. Okay, so we're going to add some finesse chenille just to splay the legs. You can definitely skip this step if you want to keep the fly a little bit lighter. So I'm like 2.5 wraps of that. We'll wrap back over tie off point. And usually I'll do like orange tip legs or something back here. Just do not have them, so I'm going with a shrimp pink color. And the more legs you have, the heavier it's going to be to cast. So from a guiding standpoint, I'm going to keep this one on what I would call the lighter side of what I think the lighter side is of legs. The ones I like to fish and the leggy buoys I personally fish are super leggy and a little bit harder to cast, but they get such a nice kick and hang before they drop down with that tungsten bead. I'm doing some hen saddle here, just 2 feathers. And this fly is supposed to be faster than the multiple shank variations like I mentioned, but I'm probably tying it as slow as some other guys are tying leggy boys. All right, so we've got our tail section finished there. There's some half hitches in. Need to throw this brush in the microwave. It's a little splayed out there. All right. So I'm going to connect this with a long shank. It's a 25 mil with the hook eye cut off. Take a size 1 trout predator. And because we're tying like deceiver style or double deceiver style with the taper, I'm going to extend the shank of this hook with that shank. And I need to do that. I need to put some thread on the shank before I do that. And I always put the hook in first at home too. I always forget this. I'm just gonna wrap pretty close. You don't want this thing fouling. So just enough room to wiggle on that eye there. So I'm just gonna leave the part that's in the vise clear for that fly to wiggle, that tail to wiggle. All right. So we're going to extend this shank just a little bit, maybe an eye length. And it's going to help us with our taper. And I'm going to throw a little super glue gel on there. And then we're back to the finesse chenille. So I'm going to do kind of like open wraps with this, because the objective is a fly that's a little bit easier to cast than the traditional swim flies. And this is going to deflect water, or I should say hold some water in the fly while you're fishing it, which is going to help on that hang, as opposed to like a Palmer chenille or something like that. And the business end of both hooks is going to be within a couple eye lengths of the eye of the hook. We're going to throw some legs in here. Kind of air on a little bit on the top side of that shank. I said I was going to keep it light, but I'm going to add some shrimp on the back hook as well. So we've got 3 legs on the back, 6 legs on the second hook, and we'll see what we get on the front hook. And these should fit in right above the last group of 3. Try to keep it kind of symmetrical. And I really think these legs act like a parachute when that flies on the paws. You can see, like, even on a really heavily weighted leggy boy, if you've got a lot of legs, those legs are gonna suspend that fly before it sinks down. And they have some weird action when that's going on. And in my opinion, weird is good. And you could fill this gap with more finesse chenille, but we're not going to do that. And I often think that the midsections here are a little bit too dense that I tie, so I'm going to try to keep this one less dense than the front hook. I'm going to take the shorter fibers out of this craft fur here. And I'm going to keep some of the butts, maybe a little bit less than this. I'm going to see how much I need to break off this craft fur. So it's going to be right into the tips of these feathers. So I'm going to start breaking like here. And when you're breaking the tips like that, your clump can all of a sudden feel a little bit too dense. So I might take some of the longer tips out of there. All right. So I'm going to cut these flush. And I'm just going to push the center of this clump over the eye of the hook. I'm going to grab around the shank with 3 fingers, and then get a couple loose wraps before I go tight. And then I'll just turn the vise, not fully distributed. I'll just work that around. And I like to do 2 contrasting colors here. Obviously we have kind of like a hot chenille base that's going to come through, but you can make the fly just look a little bit more realistic and have more depth with the layered colors. Come down real tight. I'm not going to make a thread dam there because the butts of the next section are going to be enough to keep that back. All right, we're going cinnamon over cream here. And over the years, cinnamon craft fur has become a confidence color in low clear water, or just when the water has a little tint of green. Cream and cinnamon look really well, or work really well together. Get more of a subtle glow than all white or yellow and orange or something like that. So we're measured out. Take some of the shorter fibers out of here just to reduce some bulk. This is already feeling a little too bulky again. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna go right in the middle of that clump. Secured with 3 fingers, a couple loose wraps. Make sure you're behind the eye. I always try to hide the hollowed out pen on myself. And we don't have much room for a thread dam here, but I'm just gonna build up a little bit of thread just to keep this trending backwards. All right. A little bit of resin. And if you get here and you think your tips are a little long, which these are kind of looking a little bit long, you can just flip these forward and break your tips. And this is, it doesn't really matter for fishing if your tips are a hair too long. But in the age of Instagram, and since this is a video, I'm gonna try to make it look nice. All right, looks a little bit better. And we're gonna go with 25-pound Maxima Chameleon connection with a bead. I really started to like this after fishing a ton of brushhead deceivers. Had 0 failures, and they never slip out. So now we've got size 1/0 trout predator. And I have not tried these any smaller than a 1 and a 2. I'm sure if you made them a little bit more sparse, you can get away with a 2 and a 4. But this is something I'm tying to put a big fly that kicks well in front of fish, with people that can't really cast the other fun stuff. So I'm going to come up a little bit more than halfway, fold it back. And the only time I've had the maximum slip is right here. It might just kind of work its way out a little bit, side to side. So I usually hit it with a little bit of glue there. All right. The back half is definitely too dense, so it will hang really well. It won't be that easy to cast. And since it's that dense, we're going to do 2 sets of legs up front here. Might as well. It's going to be a hanging fly. You can still keep these kind of loose because we're getting most of our bulk from the craft fur. We're going to throw some pearly white in here. And I'm going to add a little bit of lead. Just right in front of where that Maximus folded over. Some loose wraps through the lead. And more finesse chenille. And typically with any chenille or filler, I'm going to get more dense as you get closer to the head. The wraps just get a little bit tighter, closer together. Stop it there. Leave room for some more legs before 2 reverse ties of craft fur. It's not behaving, so I'm just going to tie over that. So not super dense on the finesse chenille on the back, big open spiral wraps. Start with the open wraps here and then get a little bit more dense to touching wraps all the way at the very end. And then hook yourself. And when it comes to rubber legs, I think it's been proven now by many that adding 5 different colors on a fly looks cool, and I think it also sets you apart a little bit from, you know, the standard white feather changer or something. I remember when I first started guiding, the white feather changer was a confidence fly, and then eventually everyone had white feather changers, and I was selling flies to people that fish the same waters that I do that were fishing them. So try to mix it up a little bit. Circus Peanut theory. All right, back to reverse size of craft fur. Going a little bit more dense this time up front. I'm not going to take as many of these short fibers out. And our clump is also going to be quite a bit longer. Flipping that around right through the middle or close to it. Pinch wraps here. Had some extra dubbing of craft fur on my thread there for some reason. I'm gonna have a lot of vacuuming to do after this. Working it all back for a clean jump forward. And these things really don't look pretty. All right, we're going to switch to cinnamon. I have gone too dense on the heads on these a few times. So those bulkheads don't need to be super tall or super dense. They can get a little bit too pushy. Make the fly do donuts. Even this up a bit. And the shape of your head is going to be the shape of your butts at this final section here. So I tend to, if I'm going to cut it, I cut it so it's a little bit taller than it is wide. So leave some length vertically. If you've tied craft fur game changers, this is very similar to how you finish that head without the resin. Do a couple more tight wraps just to make sure we're all good. Usually I like wrapping through the butts, but when it's a part of your head, you can't really do that. Despite how much combing I'm doing right here just to get the thread through, I haven't found the need to like keep a comb on the boat or anything, like brush these flies out. Like they seem to fish all day without needing to be unfouled, which is very important because that would just make me not want to fish these. Get some wraps back. Not quite like a thread dam, but just wrapping back towards my thread wraps that are in the middle of the craft fur here. Keep it a little bit more secure. Then we'll throw some half hitches in. Try not to catch any fibers. And then hit it with some resin. Or your favorite head cement. And the lack of precision on this brush is terrifying. Come on. All right, so this is the amalgamation of a Circus Peanut, a Bad Hair Day, a Leggy Boy, inspiration from Brushhead Deceiver from Ahrex. It's something I hope to spend a lot more time with this year, but I really enjoyed fishing them last year, and something about casting like the really dense changers that I like to fish. I've just got a lot of pain in here over the years. So this fly is a little bit lighter to cast, and you can still get a lot of the same fun fishing out of it. Those long hangs before it starts to go down a little bit, and it's going to get eaten before it sinks. But yeah, it's a fly that I look forward to spending some more time with, and I hope other people have success on it as well. Thank you.